Ionian mode is built on the first note of the scale of the key. In this instance, in our lyres, they are usually in the C diatonic scale. So our first note is going to be C. Now, what you're seeing right now is a slide that I created for you, and this is going to become hopefully a nice kind of handout and something that you can refer back to help you with the Ionian mode and help you creating your own music. So the first little bit of information here walks you through the notes on the C major scale. So it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then goes back to C. And you can see that I put a little picture of a root right underneath C to identify that that's a root note. And that's the root note for Ionian, which is also what we would do when we're playing in the C scale. Now, the next little bit of information also shows you the chord tones, and you can see that it's laid out exactly the same way as the notes on the keys are laid out. We start with C chord, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and then back, sorry, B diminished, and then back to C. So those are our chords, and those are all in the root position. You will also see at the bottom where it says it's got the numerical value in a Roman writing. It's got the I and the two little I's. Those represents the lowercase represents minor chords, and the upper cases represent major chords. So we are going to be sticking for this tutorial anyway with the major chords, C, F, G, and adding in the A minor chord. We're gonna not touch D minor and E minor or B diminished at this point, because we're gonna just really simplify this and just use those chords that is used a lot more, because really in especially in the beginning, when you're learning something, sometimes less is better, because the more things we add in just sometimes adds more confusion. So we're just going to be restrictive to just those four chord tones, and of course we could use any of the notes that belongs to the C major key, and in this instance the C Ionian key. The other bit of information down below this, I've identified the pentatonic notes in this scale. So it will be C, D, E, G, A. Those are the pentatonic notes. And the Ionian modes is our home notes. So it's the familiar, the safe, and the happy. And it's, it's one that we would recognize very readily. I've also included the chord inversions in here, and I'll get into that a little bit more later when we actually start creating our own music. But basically, our chord tones in the root notes, I'm just going to use the C, for example, C, E, G, C, E, G. That is our C note, C chord. And you can play those notes in any inversions, in different places in your lyre. So C, E, G is one way of playing the C chord. C, G, C is also another one. E, G, C, and then G, C, E. Those are all C major chords. We just played it in different inversions, and sometimes we can just play the C and the G, which is the 1-5, and that's gonna come in handy later on, so I lay that out there for you. Now that we know which notes and which chords belongs to the C Ionian, we're gonna start learning how to put a song together and how to create our own song. And we're going to be using chord progressions. I've listed a few down here that you can try. We won't try all of them today, otherwise this video is going to be way too long. So we might just pick up a couple, and I'll just give you a bit of guideline and a bit of information how I go about creating my own music and using this chord progressions and the chords and its inversions below, as well as even touching on the pentatonic. So let's look at the first inversion that I put in. It's the 1 and 5 inversion. Now, there's a lot of songs that are written in these chord progressions, and it just repeats over and over and just uses these two chords. And when I put the 1 and 5 chord progression here, you're not restricted to just playing 1 and 5 chord over and over again in just that sequence for every bar. You can play the one chord for as many bars you like, and then follow that with a 5 chord for as many bars you like, or switch it around so you could do 5 first and then a 1 after. So it just it what this chord progression mean is that we are just using this sequence, but you can change it around for yourself, especially because this one here only has 2 chords. So again, the one chord you could see down below is our C major chord, and you can play that in its root position, C, E, G. You can play it in the first inversion, E, G, C, or the second inversion, G, C, E. Okay? And all I'm doing, C, E, G, is I am just playing these chord tones over and over again for now. And at some point, I am going to allow myself to move to a different note when I feel like it. What I'm doing is I'm experimenting, I'm listening, I'm appreciating the tones. And you can say I'm calling on myself to allow the music to go where it needs to be. And I'm using these chord tone notes, the C, E, G in this instance, and I'm only playing them. I'm restricting myself to these notes. You may have heard that the sound have changed now, but I am still only using C, E, G, C. Okay, I'm gonna go to a different chord now. I'm gonna jump up to the 5 chord, which is our G major chord, so G, B, D. Where did I go? I went back to the root chord. And you could probably have heard that switch really fast because that is a note that we are very familiar with. I went back to the G chord now. I'm not worried about the timing. I'm not restricting myself to say 4/4 time or 3/4 time or any of that stuff right now, because I am doing an improvisation. So I'm just allowing myself the freedom to move around using the notes that are on those two chords, C, E, G, and G, B, D. And switching around the patterns. Sometimes I'm going C, G, C, C, G, C, and letting that G ring out for a little bit more. Sometimes I'm doing C, G, G, back to E, and then letting that G note ring again. And I'm doing that same thing when I'm playing the G. I'm letting that last note of the chord ring a bit more. And I might go down. I might go D, B, G. And then back to G again, and down to E. So that's pretty much all that I'm doing when I'm improvising and following a chord progression. Now when you get into a chord progression that has a bit more notes in it, say the next one here, which is a 1 4 5 1 progression, that means you're using the 1 chord, which is C chord, the 4 chord, which is the F major chord, and the G chord, which is the G major chord. All I'm doing is I'm following that same pattern, and I'm using the notes that are within those chords. So for this instance, I might maybe have a rolling pattern because I have more notes now. I might go, let that ring, go to the 4 chord, let that ring, the 5 chord, and I can have a choice of going to the 1 chord up here or down below here. Okay, and I can play the 1 chord in 2 different progressions before I go to the 4 chord. And in this instance, I might want to play a different 4 chord, which is a different inversion. So I'm gonna do the first inversion, and then I'm gonna go to the G. I might like that G and I might play that again. And I'm gonna go back down to my 1 chord. So just because it's written as 1 4 5 1 doesn't mean that you only play those chords over and over again, just 1 bar at a time. You can play a bar of the 1 chord, okay, those are notes that belongs to the 1 chord, which is your C major chord, and I play that in 3 bars. And for the 4 chord, which is your F major, I might just play it once and go straight to the G chord. And I might want to add maybe 2 bars of the G and then go back to C. For 2 bars. And you can see that there's differences in those tonal qualities because I used inversions on some of them. I didn't just stay with the root chord, I played around with inversions. So do give that a try, because when you're playing chord progression like this, sometimes you may find that it's kind of boring if you're just playing just the 1 root chord over and over again. But if you play that in a different inversion, all of a sudden, I'm just still using those 3 notes, but it gives a different value, a different meaning, a different color to my playing. Okay, so that's the beauty of playing with chords. It allows you to have some form of a structure and some form of a baseline and a guide of what notes to use. The other thing that I wanted to introduce you to is when you are playing in modes, you can play just your pentatonic note. Used to, you can play with 2 notes at a time. Okay, and the pentatonic notes on any of the modes is going to be changing depending on what mode you are in. So do play around with that, because when you're doing your chord progressions kind of pattern, you can add those tonal notes, the pentatonic notes, and it's going to embellish your creation, your composition in a way that is unique and different to you, right? For example, if I wanted to kind of use the chord inversion, the chord C, for example, I added a D to that, and that's is all right. It changes its value a little bit, but because it's part of the pentatonic scale, any of those notes will go with the chord that is part of that scale. So you can add any of those notes at any time that you wish. I added an A to that one, and it's going to change the value. Okay, and you're still playing in those specific bars in that chord progression. It's just that instead of just playing the chord notes all the time, you're adding another note tone. So experiment and try the notes, try combining the chords in its inversions with some of the pentatonic notes that I've identified below, and see how that sounds to you, and see which kind of patterns speaks to you the most. And at different times of the day, depending on the composition that you're making, it will vary. So the beauty about these combinations in music is you're not tied to anything specific, because you're being free. And really, to me, that's the beauty of music. That's what I enjoy about music the most, is that I am able to express myself. I don't play much for public, I play for myself, and being able to really put a sense to how I'm feeling and put it into music and hear it back is very soothing, very calming, very affirming, and just simply beautiful to me. So I hope that you enjoyed this little tutorial on Ionian Mode, and you can join me back on the next one when we look at the Dorian Mode. That's it for now. Happy playing!